If I took one out of the... Would that mess you up?
Alright, Scott. Do me a favor, call stop.
Stop.
Right there?
Yeah.
Remember that card, don't forget it, okay? You won't forget? Thomas? Camera? Alright, shuffle that in. Shuffle it in so there's no way I can know what it is. You agree, Thomas? There's no way I can know. I was looking away the whole time. No way I can know what that card is. I'm gonna try to read you. I'm gonna try to read your mind a little bit and try to see if I can figure out what it is. Alright. So here's what we're gonna do. For this process, I'm gonna go through the cards, and you're gonna look at your card. And I'm just gonna try to. John. I don't know, some guy. I'm just gonna try to read your impressions. Okay, so don't give anything away. When you see your card, don't tell me nothing. Okay? Fair? You understand?
I absolutely do.
Alright, I'm gonna go through and try to get a reading of you here. So, okay, none of these. None of these. No. None of these. No.
Are you playing much or just always names?
Yeah. Well, I perform with this deck. I have people sign up. Scott, you need to focus here for me.
I'm on it.
None of these. None of these. None of these. None of these.
I haven't
None of
played
these. None of these. None of these. Okay, I think we're.
No, I took mine out of my room and I brought it to the basement. I was like, pick it up.
I'm struggling here.
I used to play all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure.
And then this
How did you shuffle? Did you shuffle like you shuffled like this, right?
Mm-hmm. Like it sucks. Like, I picked it up for like I think you know like 10 minutes and like put it down.
Here's what I do, though.
Man, I was having fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I have.
You need to
I know it's 1 of 26. I narrowed it down to
Sit down.
26. From 52 to 26. Okay. It's not very good, but I have a backup plan. Okay. When this goes wrong, this is my backup plan. So I take these two and I do this. Watch very carefully. It's called the unshuffle.
52 pickup.
That's it. That's all it is. You know what the unshuffle does? It actually unshuffles all of the black cards and all of the red cards. Look in your hand. Look in your hand. All of the black cards and all of the red cards.
Okay, wait.
Hey, yo.
That's kind of
Okay, close those up. Hold those up. Hold those up. Put your hand on top. Put your hand on top. Thomas, put your hand on top of this one.
Now, like I said, I narrowed your card down to 1 of 26, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know which. The only thing I do know is that it's a red card, right? It's a red card. That's the 26. I narrowed it down to it's a red card. It could be. That's all I know. Can you tell me what the card was? Could be black. What was the card? 9. Of? Hearts. 9 of hearts. Watch. Who's right? See that? You see the 9? See it?
Yeah.
I'm gonna spread through that. What? Spread through. Oh.
I didn't see it in here. There's 2 9 of hearts. Hold on.
Wait.
Is there 2?
It was all sleight of hand. It's not real magic.
See that 9? That's not really hearts.
There's no other 9 of hearts, my friend.
Well, if you look closely, you know.
Alright, that was good. You got me. How'd you do that?
What is good, guys? It is Reed and welcome back to another video. Today we got How to Make Your Magic Better, episode 12 on attention direction. Something that I think is very neat, very interesting, and not talked about quite as much. It is very similar to misdirection, but to me there are several key differences that we're going to get into today. So now let's just get right into it. We got How to Make Your Magic Better, episode 12 on attention direction. So let's start where we always start with these videos. What do I mean by the topic at hand, which today is attention direction? So the idea of attention direction is controlling the audience's attention exactly where you want it to be. In a sense, you can think of this as sort of a natural misdirection, almost something that inherently is causing them to focus on whatever it is, allowing you to do what you need to do or have them not see certain things that you don't want them to see. But it's in a much more organic, sort of natural way, right? Attention direction is really about controlling the focus of the audience and knowing at all times where all your audience members are looking and paying attention to. Now, this is often not a clear misdirection. There is not a clear moment where you are doing something to misdirect them. It is often throughout the effect as sort of an overall theme, or maybe something that is constantly drawing their attention to certain spots throughout the routine or certain places, so that you can use that as a sort of natural misdirection because you have full control over their attention. You've directed their attention to where you want it. At the end of the day, it's really sort of a focal control. You're controlling the focus point of the audience and everyone there. Now, How does this differ than misdirection? Because it probably does sound very similar, and it is very similar in a lot of ways, and it does tie in hand with misdirection. But the main differences to me are that there's not a clear moment of misdirection when we're talking about attention direction. You know, with misdirection, you might go ahead and do something like a top change and gesture and hand the deck out for a shuffle or point over there, and that is a clear moment of you using this as misdirection to get the audience to follow over here while you do what you need to do. You know, maybe you're doing some kind of card to box load over here, so you do something with this hand with the deck over here to bring all the attention. There's a clear moment of misdirection, so that's misdirection. Whereas this is just more naturally built into the routine, things that happen. Oftentimes it can be vocally, stuff like that, to get the attention, the focus of the audience to a certain spot or on something specific, rather than one clear, hey, look at me, look what I'm doing, so that you don't look where I want you to look. This is often, like I said, very natural and justified too, and that's, I think, a big important moment. You really don't want the audience to feel like, oh, he must have put the card under the box when he handed me the deck out to shuffle, right? You don't want them to be able to think back and say, oh, well, he must have slipped the card into my pocket while I was focused on looking for my card in the deck, right? Stuff like that. You want these to come up much more organically and natural with the attention direction sort of idea here. And it's sort of the overall story of the effect. It's not singular moments, like I said. You don't often craft a singular moment of attention direction, where with misdirection you might craft in specific justifications or specific moments where, as you do this, you're going to use that as misdirection to do something else, right? This is more throughout the overall effect. You have full control over their focus, so that when you do need to do something, you already know where they are focused. So now, why is this important? Well, obviously, just like misdirection, it can help you get away with things. And I think that's honestly one of the smallest things you can do with this, one of the actually least beneficial. There's other bigger benefits, you know, with this attention direction. And misdirection is very good for this as well, where you can get away with things that are sneaky that you might need to do, and you might need some misdirection. So that's obviously one use of it. You know, one of the more important things is assuring your audience is always looking where you want. Right, imagine an effect. One that comes to mind is like a card under glass, where you've already loaded the card under glass, and now you need the audience's focus and attention to be on your hands over here, or what's going on with the rest of the effect for the next minute or so, without having them notice that you've already loaded the card, so you can build, you know, the time delay and then that magical moment where it feels like it appears over there. Now, this, if you can have control and establish control of the audience's focus from the start of the effect, then you'll be confident that after that load moment, you can continue to have their focus, their attention, with the properly crafted routine as you continue through, and not have to worry about them spotting what you don't want them to spot. So you can see how this is much more than just a bit of misdirection, and it's a very strong technique that if you can really have control of what they're paying attention to, where their attention is directed, then there's a lot less to worry about. And that is what is one of the things that's so powerful about this. You can really control their focus, not just for a moment, but through the duration of a routine on where you want it to be. And now, as you move your hands, their eyes will follow, right? That's kind of the idea here. And you can keep them focused on that area that you need for a multitude of reasons. It's also so you can essentially have them see what you want them to see. Almost think of yourself through the lens of the spectator. You now, if you have control of what they're focused on, you can properly deliver the effect that you want to deliver, right? Without having them notice things that they shouldn't, making sure their attention stays focused on where you want it to stay focused, so that they don't lose track of something or forget what's going on or be confused by the effect in any way, because you can have them, you know, they're seeing what you see, what you intended them to see, right? Sometimes effects can be interpreted differently, and one interpretation is better than the rest, and having them focus on one thing in the way that you want them to will ensure that you can deliver the effect as you want it to be delivered. It's about controlling the experience and the narrative of that effect through focus, through what they're paying attention to, through what they're remembering and focusing on, right? This ties into recapping with our voice. This is like the visual of that, right? The visuals of what they remember versus the visuals of what we say. And when we combine all these together, we can create some really incredible false memories and beautiful things like that. It also, interestingly enough, with attention direction, will allow us to somewhat control the moment when the magic happens, right? Depending on certain routines, you may have a delayed reaction to the magic. You may have something where you need to prolong the attention or prolong the build-up of the effects so that the magic actually feels like it happens at a certain point. And using this, you can ensure that, right? You can ensure they don't see something too early that they're not supposed to see that would ruin it. You can control the moment. When you want them to look over and see that the card jumped under the glass, for example, you can do that because you have full control of their focus. And now the magic happens when you want it to, and the effect is smooth and achieves what you wanted it to achieve. So now, how to do this? I've talked a lot about it, what it is and why it's important, and hopefully you can see that now and want to use it for yourself. So what are some ideas, some techniques, and some different things we can do to work on and achieve great attention direction? So the first thing would be to think of your effect a little bit like a story. Now, it doesn't need to be necessarily a story, a verbal story, you know, like a story about a gambler and he did this and that, but that can be a great solution, because when you have a story that's engaging, automatically it keeps people from zoning out and focusing on something else. And that's one of the big things. We're trying to keep people engaged. If you keep them engaged, they're less likely to get bored, zone out, and then, you know, take control of their own focus and start focusing wherever they want to. If we can keep them engaged, they're going to stay focused where we want them to be focused. That's why telling an interesting story can be a great technique, because they will be totally focused on you the entire time. Whether you're just talking, they'll be looking at you in the eye, or if you're doing something with the cards at the same time, they'll be focused on that altogether. But also, it doesn't have to necessarily be a well scripted, you know, start, middle, end story. It can be just the overall tale of the effect, the overall experience of the effect as sort of a story in a way, right? You start with the first phase, almost like an intro, and something pretty cool happens and all their attention will be focused. But now in the second phase, we tell them we're going to step it up a notch, it's going to get better. Maybe you tell them why, if you can, and then you work through it. And now, because the first phase happened, maybe they'll be trying to catch you out. Like, it obviously depends on the style of the effect, but maybe they'll be trying to catch you. If it's one of those kind of second routine, you're going to make it more fair. You tell them to really pay attention so that they can try to catch you. That's a great one. And then now the second one, you know they'll be focused. Then maybe in the third phase, the climax, the finale, is when you can use this. You know now, you fooled them twice. Now you know this third time you're telling them really pay attention. All their attention is 100% now going to be here, and maybe you can set up something over here to have a really strong third phase, right? So you can see how that's really great control over the audience's perspective and perception focus, rather than one moment to do the dirty work, right, with misdirection. The next thing, I'm going to link back to episode 11 of How to Make Your Magic Better, which is stating the obvious. It seemed like a lot of people agreed with my sort of sentiments on stating the obvious, which was good. I thought it might be a little bit more controversial than it was, but I'm glad that people see my perspective on it. So when you state the obvious, and you really need a foundation in that, so go check out that video so you understand exactly what I mean. But I'm talking about things like when you're shuffling the deck and you say, all right, I'm going to give the cards a mix. You give the cards a cut to change the order of the deck. That's, we couldn't know. Things like that, that to us as magicians, you often hear you shouldn't say these things because they're too obvious, but I think they do have a good time and a place a lot of the time. They're very useful because laymen aren't as familiar with a deck of cards as we are. They don't necessarily always make the connection that cutting a deck of cards can actually change the order much. It doesn't feel like much. They might not understand that how a shuffle actually makes this effect that we are going to present so much more impossible, right? So sometimes we need to state these things, and using that can actually be a great way to keep them intrigued in some of the dead time that's happening, right? If you were to take the deck back and just silently sit there and start shuffling, it's easy for them to wander because shuffling's not necessarily that interesting. So now what do? Well, maybe we go and we do a nice fancy one-handed riffle, and that will of course get their attention over here on us doing something cool. But if we can't do that, or we don't want to do that, well then maybe we have a story that we're telling while we talk. But that's not always something we can always rely on, and sometimes our effects don't have one of those great interesting stories. So we can use the power of sort of stating the obvious to say, look, I'm going to mix these cards, and you can see they're mixing. You can see, and think about that for a second. Think about that. Every single card is now being changed in a random order that neither you nor I could have known before. And then you can explain how that actually improves the effect to them, to get them to just truly understand and comprehend why the effect is so amazing, right? We, as magicians, understand because we know, we're very familiar with the deck of cards and the probabilities associated with it and that sort of thing, but laymen aren't always. So using sort of stating the obvious can be actually something that can fill some of the dead time, or something that can actually be fairly interesting to laymen, right? You'd be surprised how many basic little facts are actually very interesting if you don't know them, allowing us to maintain that control. The big thing about this is maintaining the control throughout the effect and not, starting with it and losing it and trying to gain it back, right? We want them to be focused on exactly what we want them to focus on and what we're doing for the duration. Another thing would be using gestures. Obviously, if I sat here and just did this and I'm talking like this, it's much less interesting. But when I start using my hands a little bit and talking and being more engaging, it's more engaging, right? You know what I mean? So that's something too. If you have a little bit of gestures, it can be with the cards, it can be gestures with the cards, it can be pick a card, like whatever it is, moving a little bit and having movement automatically is getting the eye and the attention to be focused where you want it to. Even if you have a moment that you need to fill with words, you just start talking, using a little bit of hand gestures and stuff like that can be really great. In that same breath, eye contact can be really good too, right? Trying to have moments where we all look down and you control with your eyes, everyone else's eyes down at the cards, and then you maybe square up the cards, and as you come back up, you have that moment where you lift your head and you start talking, maybe you ask a question and you engage the eye contact. And you should know from experience, they will always look back at you. And now if you're with a group of people, don't just stand up and look at one, look up and scan, get everyone's eye contact, right? Especially if you're about to go do something where you want everyone looking up. A great way to make sure everyone's looking where you want them to is to just scan and look at everyone, and that will also get them to feel like they should look at you. And now you say something interesting, and you do what you do. So your words can really help with this, your eye contact, your movements, really a lot of your senses can really play into getting them to focus where we want them to focus. So scripting is another thing obviously that can be great for this, like I was kind of talking about with the words, saying interesting things, telling an interesting story, maybe facts, making remarks, jokes, being playful with the audience. You see something funny, you can point out that you can kind of freestyle. All those things will just keep them engaged in what you're doing and focused on you and the cards and whatever you want them to focus on at that particular time, right? It could just be getting them not to just zone out and forget about what's even happening in the effect. Maybe it's a longer effect or something more process heavy. You want them to pay attention the whole time so that they can actually experience the magic when it happens, because if they have no context, they don't remember the beginning of the effect, well then the ending's not going to be that special. And finally, another great option is justifications, right? If everything's justified, every movement we make, then we are set to have them focus on what we want them to focus, right? If we need to do a dirty move, say, and we need them to focus somewhere, if we have a justification for them to look at something, maybe we need to do a palm and handing out the deck to shuffle. Now that's a moment of misdirection, yes, but if we can have the attention focused on us on the deck the entire time, now we come and do the palm, we hand the deck out as a justified, something that's totally natural, makes sense, and this whole time they've been focused on where we want them to focus. Now we know that their eyes are here and not here. We hand that to shuffle, and that's a justified little moment of misdirection that helps us with our attention direction. So misdirection can be fit in really well with attention direction, as I mentioned, but also as like a method to continue to facilitate your attention direction. So now let me give you a few examples of some tricks and how we use attention direction so you can get a little bit more context. So my first example will be re-swindle, the trick that I've taught on the channel. Go check that out if you haven't seen it, but it is a beautiful gambling demonstration. Now, the thing with re-swindled is at the beginning, if you know how it's done, at one point we play off a packet of 6 cards, so it's 6 cards thick, as 4. And we also set those down off to the side, well in reach, well in view of the audience. Now, I learned through performing this that, even audiences sometimes, if the cards aren't perfectly square or they're very, inquisitive, they'll be able to look at the side of 6 cards, right, this angle here, because that's what you can kind of see, and be able to speculate that maybe there's more than 4 cards there, right? It looks a little bit too thick. Now I learned that just from people having questioned it a couple of times and me having to be quick-witted and cover for why, oh no, there's only 4 cards there or whatever. Now you can see this is a good example where if we can just keep their eyes focused on what we're doing over here and keep their focus away from that packet of cards, they will never think about that until we need them or want them to think about that packet. So that trick uses a great story to help cover that, right? So you got your 4 cards and you say, you know, if I was a cheater, I might do this. I might take one, put it up my sleeve, but for now we'll just leave them over there. And I set them down over there, and then right away I come back and I say, but now I'm going to shuffle because, you know, in a game of poker, I wouldn't be given any good cards. I'd probably be given some you know, bad lower cards like these. And right away I'm pulling cards out and showing them, you know, bad lower cards. I'm showing them something. So of course they're going to look, they're going to want to see. And now I go through, and the rest of the effect is, you know, totally fun to watch. It's all a story. It's all, okay, so I have these 4 number cards here. So you can see those, and now I'm going to try to change them for those cards over there. So I'm just now, you know, I do reference these cards again, but it's all the focus is still here. I say, watch. Boom, that's the move. So of course they're looking here. Now I turn it over and we have the first change, and I drop one there, and then immediately now we go into, boom, the second change. You know what I mean? And we just go through the whole effect. And now when it's time to come back here, I instantly say, but you're probably wondering about these cards, and I pick them up. They're instantly under my control, so I can show that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 cards, even though we actually have 6, but now it's under my control. I want them to focus here because I know I can prove to them now that there's 4 cards, and the attention has been controlled all the way up until the moment where the final reveal happens. And this can also, you know, help you avoid those people who might want to try to get handsy and try to pick up those cards and look at them themselves, right? If you can keep their focus on what you're doing, that thought would not even cross their mind, enter their mind. Another effect example would be what I've kind of talked about a little bit, is the card to box load. So I think this will be well shown from down here, right? So typically, let's say we want to load this under the phone. So typically, what would happen is you might come in for the palm, and you'd have the phone set over here. Then you might hand this out for a shuffle, where you drop this and load it under the phone, as the misdirection of handing them the deck to shuffle is here. Now let's imagine we didn't do the effect where the card came to the top, you know, and then we take the card and we push it into the middle and it actually comes to our pocket, right? And then the final phase is it ending up there, right? And you can see how in that situation the audience is paying attention, and then, you know, it comes to the top, and there might not be any correlation between that and the next effect, so you might lose them for a second until you get them, boom, you get them again for a second, but then you lose them again, right? You lose their attention. So now when you do the palm, the attention, you don't know where the attention is. So now you need a clear moment of misdirection where you hand the deck out to do the load. So if we had an engaging presentation, a good story, whatever it happens to be, where their attention we know is here the whole time, you can imagine a situation where we can do the effect, come here. Again, we would probably still use a bit of misdirection, and handing it out for a shuffle might be great. But now maybe we can do something as simple as right next to it, just cutting the cards. And if their attention is all focused on the cards over here, they wouldn't even have noticed us load the card under the phone. This is one of those effects that you would probably need to tie in some misdirection with the attention direction. But if the attention is over here, right, and maybe, you know, maybe you're showing them all the cards are different. You say, look, all the cards are different. You guys saw the cards are different here. And that's when we achieve the load. If the attention's been where we want it to be the whole time, then we're set. You know, one thing you can even opt for is handing that deck out and saying, having the spectator start shuffling. And then, like I was talking about stating the obvious, we come in and we start saying, now you guys see them shuffle. That's going to be very important, because later on you're going to have to remember that these cards were mixed and we never could have known the order. Only, like, no one knows the order. It's completely random. There are, you know, an extreme amount of different ways to shuffle a deck of cards. No one could have ever, you know, anticipated what your final order would be. And we've done the load in that time when we're talking, because the attention is now being directed to the cards shuffled or what we're talking about. And also in that, I'm using those gestures of misdirection perhaps as well, which can work really great. And then the last little example is one that we're all familiar with, the pass. And a lot of times with the pass, we come and we do, you know, a big moment of misdirection, right? You try to do some kind of misdirection where maybe you come from here and you turn to the side and do the pass. Or maybe you have the card selected, controlled, and then you pass and you point and you know, or you say, here, you shuffle these, and you've done the control in that, right? So you come and you go, boom, here, you hold on to those, you shuffle those, and you do the pass in that moment. So now this is a great example of if you just have them engaged, right? Maybe you ask a question, or you have a nice story, or you have something justified, where when you have that card, and now I'm talking to you, all right, so I want you to think about a moment in time, sometime when you were younger a little bit, You know, you could have been, maybe you're in grade school. You're in grade school, and there's a lot of things you could have done while you were in this class. So think of a class you were in, maybe, right? And, you know, I just do the past then, right? Now, it's a little bit different because instead of, okay, I'm ready to do the pass, let me think of a justification. Okay, I'm going to talk to this person, turn, do the pass, talk to this person, maybe hand it for a shuffle, which works, and that's fine, right? It's fine. But now if throughout the entire effect I know that, okay, now I have their attention here, they can see all the cards, you know, maybe they picked the Ace of Hearts, they could have had any card, they're all different, right? Now I want to tell you a little story, right? When I was younger, I used to mess around with cards, and obviously I wasn't very good or anything like that. And I got better as the time went on, and now I can hold this very free, very fair, because I've already done it in that moment of attention being directed at me, or I direct the attention to someone else. I say, hey, can you shuffle at all? And I just execute a very sloppy, not trying to hide anything sort of pass, right? Rather than having that big moment of misdirection. So it's just different, right? It plays a little bit differently, and in the context of moves and stuff, it can actually work really well. Like the pass, it's a great time to use it for the pass. The card to box load, both misdirection or attention direction work well, but attention direction has that sort of natural feeling where if you don't like having to do a really like, you know, big obvious gesture, here, you shuffle the cards while you do the load, then this is something that can be a bit more subtle. So quickly, let's touch on how to improve. So how to improve, you would work on your scripting, right? So work on maybe a story with an effect that you need to have the attention directed the whole time, or work on little one-liners you can fill in, interesting facts you can fill in to keep the attention on you and focus where you want it to be the entire routine. Focus on the justifications as well, right? Why you do things, okay? Make everything have a justification, and then that way it'll feel natural, and the entire time you are controlling their attention, they won't feel like that. And if they don't feel like that, you'll be able to have full control of their attention the whole time, which is what we're going for. We definitely don't want them to pick up on us, you know, that, oh, he's just trying to control where I'm looking. And that's one of the downfalls of misdirection. It becomes a little bit more obvious when you just wait, and then go for a moment of misdirection to do something rather than controlling the attention throughout the effect. Think about your effects from the audience's perspective. Think about what you want them to witness and perceive, and that way you can decide, okay, how do I control their attention? How do I keep them focused where I want them to focus so they don't lose track of the effect, right? With one like Reswindled, if they forget the fact that I put the 4 jacks in that pile over there to start, then everything that happens doesn't mean anything. So that's why I need them to remember that and have them focused on what's actually going on. There's 5, 6, 7, 8 changes that happen, and it can get confusing on what's changing to what. So I need a good story, it needs to be clear, and most important, they need to remain focused to understand the magic. Otherwise, it doesn't even feel like a trick. So really think about your effects from the audience's perspective and how you want them to perceive them. Then of course, rehearse your routines, get the scripting down, get the moves down, get everything natural and smooth. The more natural you are, the more it just feels like you're talking and they're listening and they're interested in what you're saying, rather than you are deviously trying to misdirect them. So that's what I got, guys, for this video. I hope you liked it. I hope you kind of understand the concepts here. Might be a bit tricky to wrap your head around the difference between misdirection and this, but it's more about, you know, misdirection are short moments of misdirection. This is an overall kind of theme of the effect, or sort of keeping the focus throughout the whole thing. So it's very, very strong. Work on this. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. If you want to work on this in more detail, send me an email, rf.sleights@gmail.com, and we can set up a private lesson. One of the best ways for you to improve as a performer, and we can really work on whatever you want. So I want to thank all the new subscribers for joining, for watching this video. The channel has been continuing to grow at an awesome rate, and it feels great. Makes me want to put out a lot more awesome content. Next video we got is a super special tutorial. It is the 2K subs tutorial on my effect I call Mental Image. So you guys definitely want to subscribe, hit that bell so you do not miss that. It is an effect straight from my working repertoire. In my opinion, one of the best, if not the best, mind reading card trick you can do. 100% surefire, and it feels like a true amazing piece of mentalism. But for all you card guys, it uses a deck of cards, so it is just kind of the best of both worlds. Alright, so Mental Image coming very soon. With all that said, guys, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video.